Good evening, and welcome to the Watchmen's Report. I'm Cody Higley, and tonight I'm joined by our regular co-hosts, Robert Landon and Jason Foreman. Jason's on here. You won't see him. He's a little bit under the weather and didn't feel uh, like he should uh, share his screen. So you'll just have to wait until next time to get a good look at that face of Jason Foreman. But tonight we're finally joined. We're finally joined by our special guest. We were worried that we were going to have to do a show about our special guest without our special guest, but he's here.
That's never fun.
Fashionably late. Ben
Technically,
Weber. Ben,
thanks.
welcome.
Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
great.
And you might be asking yourself, well, who is Ben Weber? Ben Weber is a candidate for the Republican Party. He'll be appearing in the Republican primary. And the seat that he's running for is the state representative for the 86th district, which let's pull that up, Jason. Just show the folks where in the hell the 86th district is for people who are geographically challenged. Can you pull that up, buddy?
And I appreciate you doing that. The districts have changed a little bit over time, and they're going to change again.
Yeah.
So thanks
So
for pulling.
no problem, Ben. Yeah. So you can see it's pretty much all of Union County. I think most of Prospect Township in Marion County, most, maybe all of Pleasant Township in Marion County, and all of Marion Township. Is that right, Ben?
Yep, which obviously includes the city of Marion within Marion Township, Prospect as well. And as you mentioned, all of Union County, which you can see in, let's call that light orange. That goes from splits Plain City on the south end through Milford Center, Marysville, up through Richwood, Ohio, and through Prospect, up through Marion.
Yeah. Quite a territory there, fella. So you got your hands full. Now you live way down in the southeastern extreme of Union County. Is that right? You live in Jerome Town. You recently moved, right?
I do live in Jerome Township with my wife. We live off 42, which you can see in there. It's a little bit small, and Interstate 42 is pretty messed up right now, but we can talk about that maybe later or at a different time. But
yeah. Well, what we'd like to do, Ben, is just kind of get a little bit better understanding of who you are as a person, what your background is, and then we'll kind of go into some of the hot topics facing the State House. Does that sound good?
yeah, no, that's great. And I'll even, before we, get into that, I would say, thank you for covering what you cover. There's a deficit, I think, across Ohio in information, especially local, not just political information, but local news, getting to voters, getting to people that live in the towns and communities where they live. So appreciate you guys spending your own time doing this. I understand you're not paid to do this. So, that's
We work for free, Ben. We work for free.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I appreciate what you do. So, yeah, that sounds good to me. If I'm able to maybe just to share what I like to share with voters, and I've done this often recently, is share exactly what you mentioned: who I am, why I'm running for the seat that I'm running in, and why I'm asking for your vote and for other votes from the community as well. If that's okay, if I proceed in that way on your show.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now, I'm a little bit different. I am a historian, genealogist. I mean, that's been my passion in life. So I like to do research, and I try to learn as much as I can about guests so I can ask kind of pointed questions. Uh, because if you just said, "Hey, tell me about your life," well, you're going to cut out a lot of stuff. Probably. I know I would if somebody just, arbitrarily came up and asked that. So now let me just start this, and you can feel free to expand or anything you want. So are you 27 or 28 now?
That's a good some research right there. I'm 27. I'll turn 28 soon, shy of 30, and I have lived a blessed life so far. And I would like to talk about that and talk about where I'm headed. Um, unless we want to do direct questioning first and then turn it over to me.
Yeah, let's do a little. I put a lot of work in this, Ben. I mean, it takes time to research this stuff. So, okay, so were you born in Delaware County, Franklin County? Where were you born?
Yeah, so I'm a lifelong native of northern central Ohio. I was born just next to Ohio State in Columbus. And my family is rooted in central Ohio, really northern central Ohio. Family that goes back here for generations. Not all of them, but a good number of them, and that have inspired me in my life and led me on the path that I'm on.
So your parents were both in media, as I understand. Did they meet while working for was it Channel 6?
So I don't know the full story. My parents are divorced now, but I have two great parents, and they did meet in the news industry in the 70s and 80s in Columbus, Ohio, and he told stories, covered stories throughout the Central Ohio region, and I appreciate what they did, and I generally that's how they met. Obviously, I wasn't there for it, and I had some good parents.
They haven't shared the love story with you then.
Well, maybe I don't need that, but
Well, a lot of people, you got your own lives and stuff, but so your father went to Yale, is that correct?
yeah. So my dad is one of 9 kids, raised by a tremendous his parents, my grandparents, his father, my grandfather just passed away in his home that he bought with his wife in 1960 in Ohio. And has raised 9 kids in that home. My dad is one of 9 in
Oh wow.
county in Ohio. And yeah, no, he worked hard from obviously I wasn't there, but he worked hard, earned a scholarship to a good college and went on to school. And I give him credit for doing that. I think that's the American dream. My mom was a commuter student at Ohio State as a Buckeye, worked just as hard. And I appreciate, she paid her way through school. And it's something I did too. Paid my way through my undergrad at Ohio State, paid my way through law school. We can get to that. Worked during the day and went to law school at night and paid my way through. And so she set an absolute role model. She's a role model for me. Set that as an example. That's something you can strive for. Something you can still do in 2024. Whatever 2025 now, and go to college and pay for it if you work hard. Not everybody can do that. I get it, but I do believe in personal responsibility. So
Yeah, no, it's a great story. So were they both television anchors, or was your mom the anchor and then your dad was like a field reporter?
They worked. So this is before digital time. The news business was different in Columbus. There were more staff that staffed from local papers to news outlets and companies, and the broader landscape media from conglomerates just was a different, era for them. And they worked different jobs, and they both worked their way up on the news stations and worked hard. And that's my understanding. And they weren't in the news business for their entire careers. They both ultimately left those jobs and did different things in the private sectors and in other sectors. And so, but in that industry.
Yeah, and was her first after she left the station, was it as the communications director for like the Department of Agriculture? And then now she's like the chief communications officer for like the BWC. Is that correct?
So she is, yep, she still works in communications and has for several years in that field generally. She's a great mom.
Yeah. So what was it like at the Weber home? So when you were growing up, did you spend most of your time with your mom, your dad? Did you split between them? Tell us a little bit about your childhood. How many siblings do you have?
Yeah. Well, it's great to get to know candidates personally, get to know people personally. I think I lived a pretty American upbringing. I told you my parents were ultimately divorced. That's a decision they made, but that was from a time when I was at a young age. But they did that in a civil way, in a respectful way. I appreciate them doing that, and uh, saw them both. I'm close with both on all sides of my family. I'm a twin. I have a twin sister who
Oh,
recently.
really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm a twin. She doesn't look like, some people think, does she look like you? Well, she's a twin sister, so there's some differences. And I have an older sibling as well, and they both have recently had children in bringing their children into this world, and so our family's growing. I have some beautiful nieces and nephews now, and I'd say our family, all in all, is very blessed.
Well, congratulations on that. And then, as I understand it, you recently got hitched.
That's correct. So I live a very blessed life. I hinted at this before in the time that I've been alive so far. And yeah, I recently got married, and I met my wife, and we got married earlier this year in the Columbus area, celebrated it. And she's actually here in our home tonight, working on a few things. So if you hear some noise or if you hear anything going on, she's here as well, working on some stuff. So we're blessed.
Hi, Emily, if you're there. So she's an attorney as well. Is that correct?
So she's taken the bar exam. She graduated. We met in law school. She's a hard worker. She's from Northwest Ohio in a small town off 75 in Shelby County. But she took the bar exam recently. We're going to find out soon if she passed. And if not, you take it again. But I bet she passed. She's a smart person and tougher than me. She's the toughest one in our family, no doubt. So
Now, what kind of law would she like to practice?
So she has a strong interest and does some work right now in the civil and real estate context, helping small businesses, large entities pursue and resolve their disputes. And give her credit for doing that. None of us were built or cut out to be a divorce attorney or the like, and I think that's just fine. So that takes a special kind of person. We need those somewhere in our society, but that's not me and that's not her. So
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so just to backtrack a little bit, so you grew up in Delaware County. You graduated from Olentangy Liberty, right?
I did go to the Olentangy schools. Yeah, and I grew up in Delaware County. And 20 years ago, that was a growing area, much like portions of Union County are today, essentially exploding. And so as a kid, got to see some of the aspects of what the 86th House District is experiencing now. And there's some good aspects to that, to growth, to investment, to development. And there's some challenges that come with that. And if it's not done right, it can impact taxpayers very poorly. So glad to have seen that and correct.
Yeah. So okay, so we're graduated from Olentangy. So then, did you go straight from Olentangy to Ohio State?
I did graduate from high school, and I started my adult life at Ohio State Marion. It was a great opportunity, and part of the reason why I wanted to come on tonight, and this is a bit of a longer story or portion, but I just really wanted to share this, is that I really believe that Marion is a place of opportunity, and that I would consider it was for me. So I started my adult life in college at Ohio State Marion. I don't know exactly where I started out in my business degree or what major I had, but I ultimately earned a business degree, a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Ohio State. Started that at Ohio State Marion, and it put me on a path that led me to a very blessed future and a fortune, a good fortune to what I do now, where it's led me. It's led me to go on, and I mentioned I went to Capital, or maybe if I haven't mentioned, I went to Capital for law school, earned a law degree, worked for some phenomenal leaders in the legal field, conservative minds and justices and judges, and great companies like Nucor, who obviously has a presence in Marion, and have gotten to see their great work, not just in Marion, but Nucor Steel's work across the country. And I'm happy to talk about that. I think they're a great company. Happy to be a former teammate of them as well. But that all started from my time at Ohio State Marion in terms of my launch pad and launching me on a path that I believe was the right path for me, the one that I've been blessed to live on.
So how many years did you attend OSUM?
So I was there from the fall of 2016 and the spring of 2017. I think I was still working in the summer. I worked on campus, not just going to school there, but really was plugged into the community, had a job on campus, worked on days where I didn't have class because I enjoyed being there, and would have been through the summer of 2017. And then there's certain classes at Ohio State. I don't know if they've made progress on this. Maybe they have, where you have to go on and then maybe take accounting 1 in Columbus, or maybe you don't. But certain classes for me had to continue that in Columbus. That's what I did. And like I said, put me on a great path.
Who was your favorite professor at OSUM?
So I would say I am a lawyer now. Most lawyers don't have a that's where they've invested their time and their skills, and I'm privileged to be in that profession. But I would have thought, for example, I wouldn't have done tremendously well in calculus. It's not exactly a subject I use today, but there was I think this was the assistant dean at the time. There's a guy named Bishun Pandya, was the assistant dean, taught calculus for business, and worked hard with him, ended up earning an A in the class. When I had some friends, good friends of mine, nothing against them. They were student athletes as well. And it's just I'm not going to discount their time as a student athlete, but they were in Columbus taking the same class, but calculus for business. They did not end up with an A, same semester, same course, just taught by 2 different professors. So I got to give credit to some great professors at Ohio State Marion, and just a really good culture in campus to be at, study, and succeed at.
Oh yeah,
work hard.
It's a great resource. Same thing with Marion Technical College.
Yeah, I gave tours. I was in the admissions office at Ohio State Marion, and so I gave tours. And we'd be honest too. If a high schooler comes in and is interested in Ohio State Marion, a pathway to have a conversation about Marion Technical College, because this was not a sale of OSU Marion or nothing. These are your options to go and get an industry recognized credential, or go get a degree, or a pathway towards a degree. And I'm glad that those options are more fluid and more, there's just more of them than there used to be. So that's an asset for Marion that is sitting right there in pretty much the center of Marion County, right off 23 is Ohio State Marion and MTC.
Did they call the program Buckeye Ambassadors when you were there, Ben? Now there's quite a few years between the two of us, but when I was there, we were called Buckeye Ambassadors.
Well,
this would have been in about 1937, Ben. So.
1937, right?
There was a name for it. I don't think it was Buckeye Ambassadors, but I'm not sure the name survived. So,
yeah. No, I remember the first event that we had, and they were passing out our Buckeye Ambassador shirts. And they didn't have any more men's polos, so I had to wear a woman's polo as I took people around. I said, "Come on, why am I the only one with a woman's polo here? Come on,
You had to wear a medium. Did you have to wear a medium?
Yeah, right. Oh, it's funny. Good times. All right, so you start going down to main campus, and then you entered was it the Fisher College then, or?
Yep, I was a student in the Fisher College of Business, and I'll even say, just before we move forward in that regard, being on campus at Ohio State Marion, I can't emphasize enough that was a opportunity that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but which happened, to get involved in the community and learn and go to Rotary and go to the Marion Rotary, go to other meetings.
Oh, you did? When you were up here, you went to Marion Rotary?
I did. And at the time, and I got to see downtown. This was a decade ago. And as I'm campaigning today in Marion and in the district, throughout the district, but in Marion often, to see, okay, what was downtown like 10 years ago? And what is downtown like today? And generally, it's positive. There's a lot of positive things, good things happening in the community. And it was good to see it a decade ago, and I'm happy to see it now. We can maybe talk about that later, but So not every OSU Marion student has that experience, but that was mine, and it was great.
How much, so growing up in Powell and that area, did your family or did you, maybe when you got did you have much experience with Marion before you started taking classes at OSUM?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up in Marion. I grew up in Delaware County, like I said, when it was a developing area. The sports that I played are governed often by like an OCC conference in high school. And so it was throughout Central Ohio, often for sports, my sibling sports. As a kid, I don't remember exactly. I wasn't driving, for example, for a lot of those sports, where exactly we were going. But Marion's on 23. It's an asset in the community. Depending on what the travels were, it's in a really good central located spot to stop, get a bite to eat, see town, and the like. So
OSUM, so when you started taking classes there, that was really your first introduction, for the most part, at least substantive introduction to the city of Marion. Is that fair to say?
So Ohio State Marion was absolutely the launch point of my adult life, and it was a great launch point. And I won't, I just can't say anything different than that. And I had a really positive experience there, and I hope that more students get to have that same experience, both from Marion and from other places, whether they're from Marysville or Richwood or Bucyrus or wherever. I spoke at a recruiting event, I guess would be the best way to say it, for Ohio State Marion this year, and it was students from all over. And I shared my story. It was really positive. I hope they make the right decisions. If Ohio State Marion's not for them and they want to go to Marquette or something, okay, go to Marquette. But if it's the right decision for them, pursue it. It's a great opportunity, and it was for me.
Yeah, for sure. So what sports did you play in high school, Ben?
Yeah, so I was a runner. So I've done 2 full marathons, the Columbus Marathon twice, and I think that running teaches you a lot of lessons for life. If I could do it all over again, I don't know if I would stick with that, but cross country, track were the primary sports that I played in high school. But prior to that, played all kinds of other sports, soccer, lacrosse, others, football before that. But they taught me a lot of life lessons that I'm not gonna that I won't forget. Running is a challenge, and sometimes a challenge against you, sometimes a challenge against another person or another team. So it's and it keeps you healthy, which is important.
I only run if somebody's chasing me.
We know.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of people that want to chase me down, and but all right. So you graduate from the Ohio State University, and then what drew you to the path of law school?
Yeah. So I had known folks when I was at Ohio State still that went to law school, and some that actually went to an evening program. We have a couple. Ohio State has something like 7 or 8 law schools, and I think there's only 1 or 2 evening divisions of law schools across Ohio. Capital University in Columbus is one of them. Ohio State does not have that. And I knew someone who did that, and I thought, wow, that's the dumbest thing anybody could do. It just doesn't sound attractive at all. But the more I got to learn about it, I learned that if you work hard and you apply yourself, you can do great things. And so I did. I will tell you, I had a work during the day, and I can talk about what I did as my day jobs, plural, but also went to law school at night at Capital in Columbus, paid my way through it, and it was, I'm glad I did, and it's put me on a good path.
Yeah, so your first, I guess, experience in politics then, or maybe there was something before that, was as a legislative aide in the State House. Is that correct? So that was while you were at Ohio State.
So I've worked for Republicans across the board. It's no secret. I hope that maybe I'll share this publicly. I am a Republican running for the Ohio House. I believe in the values established by the Republican Party. And so I don't remember the first campaign or the first door that I knocked, or the first candidate. But there's a lot of Republicans that I've worked for. But I would tell you, after graduating with a business degree from Ohio State, after working for companies like Nucor, worked as for some time as a legislative staffer at the State House for Republicans in the Ohio House. And that was a great experience. Did that during the day, helped draft conservative legislation, that some of which actually got enacted. And I'm proud to say that it did. And did that during the day, went to law school at night, made my way through it. And I did some other things too that I'm proud of, and proud to have worked on during that experience. And I think that has prepared me well for what's next.
Ben, what type of legislation were you working on in the State House? Was there anything was it something you sponsored or co-sponsored or just kind of supported?
So I was a staff member, and as a staff member, you work for legislators. Those are the individuals who are constitutionally elected to introduce legislation, but they do rely both on the state level and federal level on good quality staff to help draft legislation, put it through the process according to what they are looking to do. So for several years, I worked for one of the most conservative, say maybe the most conservative member of the Ohio House, a guy from Delaware County, and his name was Chris Jordan. It's Chris with a K, K-R-I-S, Jordan. And he was my state representative, my county commissioner, my state senator even, when I was a kid and growing up in Delaware County. And he passed away when I was legislative aide a couple of years ago. Far too soon. He was 46, had 3 kids who are now something like 6, 7, and 8, and gone too soon. But when I was with him for the majority of my time, drafted legislation like constitutional carry, which, if you know anything about that law in Ohio, was all about writing into statute that the government should not and cannot have the ability to tell you what you need to take as an Ohioan, or what training or what obligations you need to do in Ohio to have a firearm. Because the Second Amendment isn't there to say, well, if you get this training and pay this fee, you can have a firearm. The Second Amendment says you can have a firearm. It's pretty clear. So that you'd think would be simple, but statute, that bill was necessary. He sponsored a House version. There was a Senate version. Ultimately, Governor DeWine signed that bill. Constitutional carry is the law on the books in Ohio that says you do not need a permit. Government can't tell you, here's what you need, onerous or not, to get a firearm. Now, many people do engage in training, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We can have that discussion, but the baseline of the government telling you what you can and can't do in terms of exercising your Second Amendment right is the heart and soul of that legislation, and it's now law. So it was a privilege to be a part of that and work on that. Again, I'm not the legislator. I was a part of the process in that, and that's just one of couple of things I really had a hand in. It was great. So
now you worked at Nucor as well when you were in college. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Nucor is a fantastic company, former teammate of Nucor. As I hope, and I'll just share this, I hope that everyone in Marion knows how much they've invested in their facility in Marion. Starting in 2017, the corporation of Nucor across the country decided Marion is producing a lot of really good steel, and they have a really good community. So they chose to invest something like $85 million in the Marion rebar steel mill, where they make rebar for all types of construction projects. And I got to see the Marion mill and learn about the Marion mill and then the great things going on there and other mills across the country, and how the steel industry in particular is powering America. It really is the American steel industry, not foreign steel, and we can talk about that for a long time. But I'll just say this too: President Trump, I have to give him credit on this. I wouldn't say it's because of President Trump that Nucor is successful, but President Trump, in his first term in office, saw the need that our adversaries, China and other similar countries, were not playing fairly when it comes to the steel market and trying to run steel companies out of business. So he took aggressive action to support the steel industry, and now we have strong investment in Nucor and Marion. So I got to give credit.
Yeah, Trump's the man. So what can you say?
And you can either stand up, or you could just say, okay, China, don't do something, or you can be a leader and tough on the issue like President Trump is, and he was. Like I said, the facts are facts. Nucor then in 2018 invested $85 million in this city. So
yeah. So did you work at the Nucor plant in Marion or at another location?
I worked for Nucor Corporation, not Nucor Marion Inc., but Nucor Corporation, which exposed me to the Marion steel mill and also steel mills across the country. They have steel mills in, tell you, Nucor, I'm biased, the best, most effective and efficient steel manufacturer in the country, if not the world. So it was great to see them and I was exposed to steel mills across the country.
So was that as a public affairs intern? Was it a paid position? Was it for college credit? What was it?
Yeah, college credit, I'm not sure. I think there was some college credit associated with that. Nucor's a great company. They pay their interns, and they pay interns of all kinds of capacities, from engineering to public affairs to logistics and distribution to finance and technology. I know they pay their interns. I believe they paid me, and that's what I love about these companies like that. They provide young people with really good opportunities.
All right. So then you go to Capitol. We talked a little bit about that. What was your career like at Capitol Law? You said you were in the night school program, and then during the day, you continued to do externships, internships in the State House, and then also for Chief Justice Kennedy, and then a number of others. But what was your career like at Capitol?
Yeah. So for anybody who goes through night school, I give you credit. It was not fun. I mean, I was fortunate to have done it. I'm glad I did it. But at times it was a challenge. But those are sometimes in life we're presented with challenges and you can decide how to proceed. And so, I worked hard during the day. Like I said, I paid my way through law school at night. Not everybody can do that. I'm not suggesting that everyone try, but I did. And yeah, I mean, I got to work for, other strong conservative judicial and legal minds as well. And I can talk about that. But I also say we have some issues in higher education. When I was there, it was during COVID, for lack of a better way to, I mean, and there's issues related to that. And also some just silly things that go on in higher education. I appreciate, for example, there's an initiative in the legislature. I have not worked on this directly, but I can attest as someone who was in higher education not that long ago, getting a law degree, that conservatives absolutely have maybe a bias against them, or at least there's a more support for the other side of the aisle in higher education, and it is a serious problem.
You mean liberal bias? Is that what you're getting to, Ben?
Absolutely, liberal bias. One of the leaders that I look up to in politics is our Congressman Jim Jordan. Congressman Jordan is the chairman of the U.S. House Judiciary Committee. I probably don't need to tell any of you that, or your listeners, but Jim went to Capitol Law School. Years before me, I would ask anyone to tell me how many credit or a placard, or how many times his name is mentioned at the institution, the law school that he went, where now he's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. There's not one mention of Jim in that building. That's not a surprise. That's not an accident.
Not one.
Not one. And that's not an accident. And that is the exact kind of liberal bias that is involved in higher education right now. And I pushed back against that when I was there. I was chairman of the Republican Club for the school, and we brought conservative Republicans and judicial minds to the building to talk about issues. We're not afraid to talk about them. And
How
many law students were in that organization?
It fluctuated at times, but I'll tell you, while there would appear, maybe this is the upshot, while there would appear to be more liberal students in higher education right now, there's a silent majority. I know if we had 25 people show up to a meeting, there are so many more that have something going on, or they'd say, I'm with you, I'm voting for you, I want you to know that. I'm trying to go get a job at a big law firm, but I'm scared that they'll find out I'm a Republican and maybe take some type of action. So I'm not going to be involved, stick my neck out. I think that's such a shame in America. Obviously, I'm a proud Republican, so I am who I am, but that's a bit of a problem.
Were you involved as well with the Federalist Society while you were in law school?
The Federalist Society is a nonpartisan but conservative-leaning just conservative organization, and I was a part of the Federalist Society. They debate the merits of issues freely and fully, and I think that's a great thing for our country to take a look at an issue, talk about the merits of it, and the Federalist Society provides recommendation for conservative judges, for example, for President Trump to appoint to the judiciary. So it's a good organization. I mean, President Trump takes a look at them. That's not the only organization for judges he looks at, but I do know he looks at their recommendations. So,
and you were involved with the Federalist Society at Capitol.
Yes, yeah, I listen to their conversations, go to their meetings. I mean, they're conservative lawyers, and whatever we can do to have in Ohio, in a rural.
No, I'm trying to. This is a positive, Ben. I'm not trying to anything like that. I view the Federalist Society as a positive thing. So
and most asking if you were involved with club or something. They're conservative lawyers. We have a lawyer deficit in rural Ohio, and I hope that the lawyers that are being produced in Ohio and other engineers and accountants, that they are conservative, and at least that they're going back out to their communities.
Ben, that's a perfect segue into something that we were just talking about last night at our candidates night for the Marion City Charter discussion, and something that Cody and I have talked about extensively on our episodes here on the Watchmen's Report about the deficit of qualified attorneys in rural America, especially here in our area. Can you tell us more about your thoughts on that, about how would we develop that talent? What do you think about city charters? Do you have any thoughts on that? Just kind of give us more from your perspective.
Yeah, so I can tell you that the bar in Ohio, the Ohio Supreme Court, I'll even back up. Republicans in Ohio are in the driver's seat when it comes to politics and government. We have a Republican governor. We're going to have the next Republican. The next governor will be a Republican, and that will be Vivek Ramaswamy. That's who I support for our next governor. So we're in the driver's seat for the governor's mansion. The Republicans are in control in the legislature and are leading there, and we have a conservative Republican Supreme Court. So we're in the driver's seat, as you mentioned, to the question of lawyers. The leaders at the Ohio Supreme Court, and these are people who are elected across the state, who right now, who are the majority of which are Republicans, some of whom I've worked for and supported, and I've helped voted for them as much as I hope that you have as well, because I think they're good people and good judges. They care about that issue. So there's an initiative sponsored through the Supreme Court. I don't know the status of it in the legislature in terms of if it needs to be in the legislature even, but at the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Sharon Kennedy, who won her re-election in 2022 for the Chief Justice seat, cares a lot about that. And so she created the new program, the Rural Practice Incentive Program at the Ohio Supreme Court, to incentivize lawyers to go practice in one of not the 6 counties or the 8 counties that are most popular. Franklin, so City, Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland. There's a few other, Montgomery for Dayton, maybe Lucas County for Toledo. And there's incentives associated with that. Now,
what kind of incentives?
My understanding is that they're loan repayment incentives, and I paid my way through law school, for example. Now, I'm not here to say that they're bad or good. We can debate the merits of whether it should be loan incentives or something else. Maybe it's a reduction on the fees that they pay to be licensed, which are something like $500 every 2 years for lawyers to become relicensed before the Ohio Supreme Court, for the bar. So there's different ways to incentivize it. Maybe it's some type of tax incentive. But there could be, and there are beginning for the first time, I think, maybe ever, an incentive to get more lawyers practicing in rural communities so that somebody in Marion doesn't have to drive to Delaware for a lawyer.
Well, here's my thing, though. Just because I love to look at the future, and I always try to stay up on trends and technology, and obviously how big artificial intelligence is right now. You know, the whole thing is white collar work is, we're going to lose 50% of jobs in the next 5 years and all that stuff. And I think there's some truth to it. Obviously, people like to play on the truth with that too. What do you think about that? Why would somebody go $100,000, $2,000 in debt or work for 7 years to pay off a degree just to maybe not even have a job?
Yeah, that's a great question. And two, I hope that there's some interesting lists out there. I don't know if they're, who knows how valid they are, of the jobs of which there's the highest likelihood of replacement because of AI, and then the list of the jobs that are least likely to be replaced because of AI. The least likely is an interesting list. I mean, these are at the top, funeral embalmers, people who do tire rotations, and the like, and so a lot of service industries. But to your question, look, AI is here. The state legislature is taking a close look at how to regulate in areas maybe where it's needed regarding AI. I don't think that we can run scared from it. If it's going to make us more efficient, we can embrace that, and businesses are, whether we like it or not. So how that impacts the legal field, what we need are high quality lawyers in our communities, the people who we know and we can trust when challenges and situations arise. I think that the Ohio, I'm not going to speak for the bar, the court, the Ohio Supreme Court. I'm not going to speak for them, but I know they probably share a similar belief of, we're looking for high quality attorneys in every community. How can we make sure that that's still the case, even in this new world that we're living in? And that applies to doctors and it applies to engineers. And, we care just as much about making sure that there's still good quality engineers that are working on a bridge in our community.
What do you think about, because there's a lot of talk, like here in Marion, we had, it's called Ramtech. You might have heard about that out at Rivers Career Center. And it's like a state of the art. I think it was one of the first, if not the first of its kind in the state of Ohio, where they teach robotic manufacturing skills, automation, and things like that. And so they're obviously investing in some trade skills. And that seems to be another thing that's being pushed too. So it's like we have shortages of attorneys, we have shortages of doctors, but we have shortages of electricians and plumbers. I don't understand how we have shortages everywhere, but what would your position be at the State House to navigate that balance between white collar work and blue collar work?
Yeah, so I'm a champion of the trades. I spent time at Nucor. Just the environment and the culture at a company like that is something that's really hard to pass up, and they pay well, and that matters. So I think that on the higher end of, not that higher, there in the careers where there may be more education required, more technical training, lawyers, doctors, etc., the payoff is there. I think the marketplace will drive individuals who want to go that path in that direction. But right now, there's individuals who are underskilled and could have at least a baseline industry recognized credential that could very quickly step up into a job where they're making more money, they're providing for their family, and they have health insurance. And that gets them off government benefit rolls. I'm a big proponent of that. I've also done some work for that in the disability space. And that's a different conversation. Those are people who want that job. They just need some support and assistance to get there. But yeah, those are generally timelines that are quicker. And I think that can move the economy forward pretty quickly. I don't think that that's where the focus, it seems like that's where the focus has been. When I talk to manufacturers and other businesses, I mean, they're looking for high quality work. And we have, like I said, OSU Marion, MTC in the community. I was at the ribbon cutting for the Marion downtown location for the Marion Technical College. I know that's been a long time in the making. So I hope that stuff like that creates new pathways for the businesses right here. I hope, that's, if someone needs to go somewhere else, they can. I'm a free market type of person, but if we can give them those pathways here, I think that's great.
Thank you.
From a historical perspective, Ben, how did this country get to this point? Now, what do you think? I mean, we do have a significant cultural decline. We have a crisis in competency that's pervasive in the country. Would you agree with those statements?
Well, I look at things specifically through the lens of Ohio. Ohio is growing, and it's been growing for some time. Central Ohio. I was at a meeting this morning with the business community, the Union County Chamber of Commerce, and it's a reminder that the Central Ohio region has been growing for a long time, and it's been consistent.
Is growth equally distributed, across central Ohio, or is it focused
No, I mean, the
in
distribution probably has
Metro Columbus?
Licking County probably is getting a lot more right now. Maybe, I don't know. Seems like Intel was hot. Now it's not. You know, President Trump is involved in that now, in terms of the United States with Intel. So, but Union County has experienced a lot of growth. Delaware County experienced a lot of growth 20 years ago. Marion has experienced some growth, and maybe
We're actually declining. We're actually declining.
Yeah.
In population.
Well, and so I guess the question there is what's the growth of capital investment in the community? And I haven't seen that number. It's harder to get that. That's private money. I'm curious.
So you
Let me just say this
Go
one
ahead.
thing, Rob, because this is all part of, you know, having the proper historical perspective, especially as it relates to the city of Marion County. Not only do you have a decline, now it hasn't been a substantial decline. There are certain areas in rural Ohio. I mean, I think a lot of the power and wealth and influence and growth in the state of Ohio is centered around primarily Columbus, Cleveland Metro, Cincinnati Metro, and to a lesser extent Dayton, and you know, Toledo kind of gets crap too. But a lot of your rural areas and stuff, that's what we're seeing. And Marion has seen substantial economic decline over the past 50 years. So what, in this age where we have big government, even at the state level, we have big government, and through the implementation of the state income tax in 1972, what has been the result of that, Ben? It's the state getting wealth, and then it picks the winners and losers to redistribute that wealth that is confiscated from all 88 counties. And if you're not politically influential in your particular area, then you probably aren't getting as much as far as that investment goes, or redistributed money. So how do we get Union County? Yes, it's growing. We can say that Jerome Township is one of the fastest growing. What do we do about us up here in Marion?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will tell you, I am skeptical often. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it in a just maybe conservative way on how we spend money. I'm skeptical of paid economic development, jobs and opportunities. But you know, if you can look at it through an ROI lens, you know, it is what it is. But I will tell you, I'm a free markets conservative. So the question that I'm asking, and I would challenge you to ask, is how do you gain private capital investment in the community without the government support? That's what I generally think across the board. Private capital investment is the right way to go. Newcourt made their decision to invest in Marion on their own accord. I mean, there were things going on in the steel market, but that's not the, you know, wasn't the city of, you know, the city providing an incentive just to get them here. And obviously you don't want to give away the farm if they're already going to invest anyways too. That's a, you know, I think
that's a fair point. I think too, though, we have to step back. Let's look at the broader picture when it comes to President Trump, right? If we only let the free market just do whatever, they're sending jobs overseas. And that's what happened to Marion in the 60s, late 60s and 70s and 80s. And that's really where Marion tanked. We had an influx of union power in Marion. It was Democrat control for years. And so, yes,
I also implemented a municipal income tax, though, too, Robert.
And
you have to have local policy that is conducive to government, or conducive to private investment and business. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to say is that, you know, I'm a free market guy myself, but I think there is a moment where as leaders, as community leaders, as President Trump has done, he has kind of stepped in with some like with the trade wars, for instance, right? Implementing tariffs and at least trying to influence the market, or at least help nudge people in the right direction to say, hey, let's get back on track, because we're really not serving our country well with the way we're doing things. And if you kind of look at what's really being discussed in Marion City Council, even we have our administration wants to create an economic development director position, and we've kind of got a vacuum there right now where our economic development director, we don't have one. So I can't really even point you to. I'm not trying to say what you were saying. We weren't trying to disagree that Marion is necessarily growing or declining. Everybody has opinions there, but nobody really knows, because who's making the reports to tell us, well, we're down 3% year over year? At my job, I can see stuff like that. I can't see that for my community.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that?
Yeah. Well, my question is, and these are the conversations I'm blessed to have as a candidate, talking to business leaders in the community, is what are the challenges specifically about investing in existing business in Marion, or what are the challenges in terms of bringing a new business to Marion? If you have heard about those challenges, I'm very curious to hear what those are. And that's different than what a business leader might say in Union County or Chillicothe or Newark. You know, they're even though we're in the Columbus region, and obviously that's different than what they would say in Urbana, in Champaign County.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's.
What do you think the median household income is in the second ward of Marion, Ben? 2020 census figure, median household income, second ward. What do you think?
I mean, I without looking, I mean, 45,000 as a household, or are you saying individual?
Median household income.
Median household, you know, anywhere from $39,000 to $52,000 a year.
It's about 28,000.
Okay, you know,
very impoverished. So
yeah.
What do you think their source of income largely is going to be when you're talking about that income level? And it causes a ripple effect downstream.
Mm-hmm.
And there again, you had at one time, Marion, you know Marion's historic nickname, Ben?
Like Shovel City, or like?
You got it, Shovel City.
Yeah.
Marion Power Shovel, its predecessor, Marion Steam Shovel Company. Do you know how many people that they, at their peak, that they employed?
I'm gonna guess 2,000 to 3,000, maybe more.
4,200.
Yeah.
Do you think, and that's when people, like you said, your family had what, your was it your dad's family or your mom's family was one of 9? Is that what you said?
My father was one of 9 kids. Yeah, they were modest, a nurse and a modest engineer salary.
So that's when the average American family size was, you know, large. It's probably in the state of Ohio, let's say back in 1920 or whatever, you know, probably 3 kids or something like that. So you put 4,200 single person employed. So a lot of times the spouse would stay at home, have 3 kids on average. And you look, that one company was able to sustain and provide. So these people, home ownership was huge. You didn't have a lot of rentals. You know, they were able to live an American dream. And then you look at what, from a policy standpoint, has changed over the years, in a direct correlation with economic decline, not only in Marion, but we're talking much of the Rust Belt and other areas of the country. It's the era of big government, Ben. That's what it is. Big government, it's government taxation, government spending. So is that something that you, if you were to get into the State House, would be looking at? How do you shrink the size of government and reduce the regulatory burden so that people the productive people are incentivized to produce?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And you also hit the nail on the head of what President Trump ran on, especially in his most recent election, and which the American people sent a mandate and elected Donald Trump, not only with the popular vote or with the Electoral College, but also with the popular vote, because I think it was a lot of what you were talking about. So at least we have President Trump and J.D. Vance in the White House. And I'll tell you, I was at the White House recently, about a month ago, maybe a little bit more than a month ago, hearing updates from President Trump's cabinet, senior officials, and they are making tangible progress on those exact types of promises that they campaigned on. So we have a leader in the White House who's sending power and decisions back to the states and back to communities like Marion wholesale. And that was the message of what I heard, was that the power and decision making is going back to local communities, back to the states. So then that puts the power in the state legislature and a governor like Vivek Ramaswamy to take a look at that exact question. How can you shrink the size of government from where it is today? One of these inflated areas of government is property tax, and it's a hot issue. And it's the number one issue of my campaign. The number one reason why I'm running for state representative and to be your next state representative, if you live in the city, and for those who live in the district, the 86th House District, is because I think that the state of Ohio and the legislature needs to cut property taxes. I don't even think it's up for discussion. I think we need to do that. There's different ways we could accomplish that goal, but we absolutely need to do that. So that's, in terms of big government, that's one of these areas where, if I can continue on this, that your home, there's homes in Marion, there's homes in Richwood, there's homes in Marysville, throughout the Route 4 corridor that I'm on every day, that have gone up in value 25, 35% maybe. The valuations of those homes for tax, their assessments are going up. It's a bit of a lag. So their home went up 30, let's say the home went up 35%. Their tax bill is now going up 25%. But we're not getting 25% better schools. We're not getting 25% better EMS and fire cover. So the tax system is fundamentally broken in Ohio. We've had this asset, not bubble, but this increase in asset values. And that benefits property owners. I'm not here to say that. But the burden is now front and center on Ohioans, and we have to do something about it. I'm happy to talk more about it, but
it doesn't really benefit you if you're taxed out of being able to afford your home in a highly inflationary environment. And it's not, that's what gets me, is that people don't want to acknowledge the ridiculous amount of inflation, of printing, of issuance of government bonds and debt during the Biden administration. Not to say that it's not continuing to this day, but we had unprecedented, and that's a tax. Inflation is a tax. It's all directly caused by the fiscal and monetary policy of the Federal Reserve and then also the U.S. government. So that's been a huge issue, but go check the auditor's website for your county. If you live in Marion County, if you live in Union County, and look at the historic data. It's more a 5-year comparison, Ben. If you search any property in Marion County, it's something like 60% increase.
Insanity.
Experience in a 5-year period. It's ridiculous. So then when you're putting that burden on these households, something's got to give. And when you look at it and you say, what is the distribution or the allocation of your property tax bill? Roughly 60% is going to your local public school district. And to give you a quick statistic here, Ben, 8th grade proficiency for Marion City Schools, for reading proficiency, what percentage do you think, according to an interview done last fall, I believe, by one of the school board members? 8th grade reading proficiency, Marion City Schools, what percentage do you think it is?
Now, is that a Department of Education like standard, or is that just sort of a general? I'm sure it's not as good as it could be.
Give me a number.
75% proficient would be
5%.
Well, that's
math proficiency, 8th grade, Marion City Schools. Give me a number.
Well, knowing what you just told me, let's say I'm an optimist. So let's say 10.
2%. 2%. So if you were to drop a child, kind of like Jungle Book, Mowgli in the Jungle Book, and raise them by the animals in the jungle, Mowgli's probably probability of being proficient at math and reading better than somebody being taught in the Marion City schools. And you're paying these outrageous costs.
Yeah.
Something's got to change fundamentally then.
Yep.
Well, I think that's a great point, and I think we probably want to hear more about, Ben. What would you say are your top 3 campaign points or 5 points or whatever it is? What are your things that you're running on primarily?
Well, and I'll hit that, but yeah, before we leave the subject, I'd ask you and the same question, right? If you're that's the quality of the education, and your bill just went up for it. So are you really getting 35% better schools for the 35% more that you just paid? The answer is obviously not. We're gonna have to do a lot about that. But I'll tell you, I am running to be your next state representative. We pulled up the map earlier. It's the city of Marion, Prospect, down into Union County, because there are 3 fundamental issues that I believe that the legislature is going to have to address, and that I commit to addressing as your next state representative if I'm blessed enough to serve in that term in office in the 86th House District. The first of that we talked about is property tax. I'll reiterate, the legislature has to do something to reduce property tax burdens for Ohioans. I don't think that's up for discussion. The question is, how do we do that? And I'll tell you immediately, there's I would consider low-hanging fruit that if you're older than 65 in Ohio and you've been paying your taxes for years, sent your kids to schools, and you're making less than, let's say, $150,000 or less than $100,000, you should not be paying as much in property taxes. You've paid into the system for many years, and now it's only been going up and up for you. If I can,
As much or none?
Well, let's start with as much. Let's deliver immediate relief to that. That's
so basically like an increase to the homestead reduction. Is that what you're saying? Right.
So right now in Ohio, to qualify for the homestead exemption, you have to be older than 65 and make less than something like $39,000 a year. When I think about that, and I think about property tax, think about my Jim and Tess Weber. Jim and Tess are my dad's parents. I'll tell you, my dad, I mentioned, was one of 9 kids in a different county in Ohio. Great people, but Jim and Tess bought their house in 1960 for $29,000, and they lived in that house. They still own it, and they raised 9 kids in it. That led to 15 grandkids, 18 great grandchildren. They live, and my Jim unfortunately passed away very recently. I was with him in his final days here, but he passed away in the house, that same house. But they bought it for $29,000 in 1960, and they paid the value of that house over and over again in property taxes. And the homestead is not adjusted. It has not kept up with the realities of that. So I don't want to see property tax squeeze people like Jim and Tess, and now just Tess, who still lives in that house, my grandmother. And I don't want it to squeeze you out of your house. And that's, we can do the homestead exemption. We can expand it. I also say, for if your house that we're talking about is where you live, not your vacation house on a lake somewhere else, but where you live, we can give you a little bit more off. That's called the owner occupancy credit, and we can expand that. I don't mean to disregard someone's lake house, but if those who have lake houses probably have a little bit more to pay for their own taxes. I mean, that's just, I think that's fair.
What's the owner occupancy right now, Ben?
It's small. It's very limited. So,
so like 2.5%.
In ballpark of 2%, might be slightly higher. I don't see why we can't expand that. As we have that in place today, to a little bit more, and keep pushing that. I will push for that. And the last thing is, if you're a veteran and you've served our country, thank you. And we ought to give you a little bit more off in your property taxes and make Ohio the best place to live and retire as a veteran. I know we're not the warmest state in the winter, but we can do more to thank you for your service. Our current state representative has carried some legislation on that. I will give credit to that, and I don't think it has advanced all the way through the process, but nonetheless, I support our veterans. I think it's something that we can do. So that's on the property tax issue. We have to look.
I'm not done with the property tax issue.
Yeah. That's okay.
I think you're talking scalpel as opposed to a broad axe, and I think a broad axe is what's needed. They've got to do something more than that's not enough, and it's got to be in combination with a substantial reduction in spending. What can we do there? We need an Ohio Doge, man. That's what we need. We need the Doge.
There is a Doge caucus in the state legislature. I would commit to being a part of that. You know, the taxpayers, I'm a taxpayer, and everyone else watching this program is a taxpayer, demand nothing less than the most efficient government possible. How we spend our money, how it's accounted for, and what do we use it for ultimately. So I will tell you that if we want to do more, I believe that we can. But as Republicans, I mentioned Republicans are in the driver's seat in Ohio. We have to have a conversation about how we want to fund services that are provided or cut services.
What do you think we can cut? What do you think we can cut?
So, and I'll just say this too, Republicans generally believe, and I believe this too, that no one is entitled to a free lunch. And so I was on the road today. I drove, several miles. There's an infrastructure under that road. I'm covered wherever I'm at by EMS coverage, covered right now by fire coverage. Those are benefits that I receive. So we can, if we want to eliminate property taxes, and I appreciate why we're having that conversation. The legislature has failed to act to deliver any type of relief. That's how we got here. If we want to go big, let's go bold, but let's talk about what do we cut? And to tell you, the state of Ohio, do you know what the state of Ohio spends the broad majority of their budget on?
Probably pensions.
Medicaid.
So about high 40% is Medicaid, and then another third or so half Medicaid. The next third, and some of the money that's spent is coming in from the federal government. We can have that conversation about that. But half Medicaid expenditure, half the money that Ohio spends on Medicaid, another third-ish is on primary, secondary education, as well as higher education. Primary, secondary is the big majority, the third of that, and something like 7% of the state's expenditures is on higher education. The remainder are much smaller categories. So the lion's share is Medicaid and primary, secondary education, and then higher education.
Right.
That's what's on the table.
Have you looked at the historic trends, though, in public sector employment over the years?
I would
back
30,
40, 50 years. It's an exponential increase in the number of state employees, public sector employees, and it far outpaces the increase in the population. So that is again indicative of the growth of more and more government. And if you look in the city of Marion, then if you go back 50 years, you would see companies like Marion Power Shovel with thousands of employees, Tecumseh, Eaton, you name it, the railroads. Those are all gone. What do you think within the top 5 largest employers in the city of Marion? What do you think those look like today?
In the county, Nucor, if we're talking public and private, Whirlpool.
The city schools. The city schools, the county, the city, it's all public sector employees. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable at all.
Local. And that's local. And that's a tough conversation that the taxpayers deserve to be had by elected officials. And that's part of, we talk about property tax, that's a portion of what it goes towards. And sales tax for county government and those employees. So, I think that there's nothing we should and we must ask the questions of, right, is this necessary? I said earlier, I'm inherently skeptical, I don't mean that in a negative way, about paid economic development opportunities. There has to be an ROI on it. And that's just how, if it's, but that's not my job to hire and fill that job. And that's the local citizens of Marion have elected a city council to make that decision. I'll defer to them on that.
How much involvement, though, would you have? I mean, it's part of your district, so your interaction with these people, and I see you at a lot of events. I know you're doing a good job getting out there on the campaign trail and stuff. But if you got elected, I mean, do you go and try to have regular conversations? So when they're talking about doing a fully public position of an economic development director, do you speak up? Do you try to guide them? Do you say, hey, what you need to do is maybe consider making your city more attractive to business and investment, to where people, the free market will be able to fill the void? Or what do you do, Ben?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you, the companies who are already here probably aren't asking for an economic development director, right? They have a relationship, I hope, with their city council members, the mayor's administration, and they hopefully have an open line of communication. I bet they do in terms of talking about what they need. So I've shared what I think about it, and that's just one job, though. If we want to be realistic about what you mentioned, one of the heart of the problem, the expansion of the number of employees versus the population. That's a really crucial question to ask in every city, every county, other areas. I don't see it maybe as much in townships, but I'm sure it happens from time to time. So, I'm all for those really thoughtful conversations, really, and push on, is this necessary? Is this every dollar spent? Is it necessary? And that's all of our frustration with the federal government. I know we're not talking about that, but that could probably make all of our heads explode, that somehow it's a challenge today to spend less than we did last year, or go back to what we spent before the COVID-19 situation, which obviously that exploded spending. And just to go back to, obviously that's over, that situation's over. But to go back to it is like impossible, and that frustrates the heck out of me in terms of spending. As federal government, I'm not running to be in Congress, I'm running for the state legislature, but unfortunately that goes on in government. It's so frustrating.
And do you think DeWine handled COVID well?
Do I think the governor?
Do you think DeWine handled the COVID situation well? And if you had to give Governor Mike DeWine a grade from A to F, what grade would you give him?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. I'm voting for Vivek Ramaswamy for governor. One of his opponents, I don't know if she'll be the actual opponent, is one of the culprits who shut down Ohio. I'm not here for nicknames or anything, but this is the person who tried to lock down our state. When COVID was going on, I had a family member who was passing away in a nursing home, and we were prevented from going into the nursing home and seeing and giving our last goodbyes until the very end. And I think that kind of government overreach is just absolutely unnecessary. I mean, it was this is my grandmother, who I was really close to, great people. Her husband was a veteran, Air Force pilot. And yet to almost not be able to be with her when she passed on is just unfathomable to me. And that's the kind of government overreach. This person, people like that, they're not dying from COVID. They're in their 90s. That's a part of the circle of life. So I have those experiences. I'll always carry with me, and that frustrates me to this day about that situation. I think it was an unnecessary government overreach in our life, and I hope that we never have to see it again. I hope that my kids never.
And it was largely DeWine, right?
Well, him, I'd say the governor, other public health professionals,
But he's the governor, so I mean,
we had a president though that also didn't really help us on that at the time much. I mean, if anything, he was running whether he was running the White House or not, we don't know. But I'm talking about the former president.
The auto pen was running the White House. Ben.
That's exactly right, and I have seen the picture of that. I think that's some people want to complain about it, but there's some factual basis to it that are still being uncovered to this day, which is nuts. So. Yeah, I mean, it was a bad time. I think there were a lot of bad decisions that were made in regards to that, and I hope that we never have to see it again. And it is what it is.
So, what grade do you give DeWine?
I will tell you, I'm disappointed in the handling of that, and I'm sure many other businesses are disappointed as well. But I'm not here. I mean, we have learned from the past. I have lived experiences, and I think we ought to move forward at this point. And we listen to Vivek Ramaswamy when he's asked similar questions about, the past, and we're here to move forward in our state, and that's what we're going to do.
I'll take that as a D, folks.
I'll let you take it however you want to take it, but that's
a D.
Pretty poor experiences. So,
all right, Robert, go ahead. What's your next question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what would be your next point that you're running as part of your campaign platform?
Yeah, so as property tax is number one. We have to do something about it. This next, and the second reason why I'm running to be your next state representative is because I'm a fighter for families in Ohio. I care deeply about the family unit. I think that's important to our society, and supporting individual liberties related to the family unit. I'm 100% pro-life. That's who I am. I very much and I fully support parents' rights in their decisions in regards to their children's education and having options and being involved in the decision-making process of their children's education. And I also support parents' rights in the medical decisions of their family. And this kind of goes back, I'm glad we were just talking about the COVID situation. I don't think it's the right thing for the government to say that you need to get X shot to go to that was just developed this week to be able to fly on a plane or get this thing to go to work. And, for the government to say that, if you want to get that, it's free market. That's how I must say, it's America. You can do that. But for the government to tell you to do that, it's almost as bad as the government telling you what you can and can't say, which is obviously why we have the First Amendment. So falls right in line with that, but I'm a fighter for our families in Ohio. I'm blessed to be married and starting my family right now. And, government interference is something I wholly oppose, and I'll oppose it as, your next state representative. And we've made some progress on this. I mentioned I've worked for Republican legislators. They've done good work. I think our next governor would acknowledge that, but that's sort of an offense and defense situation. We don't know what COVID happens. We don't know what the next situation will be. I hope there isn't something like that. We're ready for it to say, that was a bad example of the government interfering in our lives. And I don't think I need to say anything more about that, but I'm a fighter against that and a fighter to support parents and life in Ohio. So
before we move to your
point, gender reassignment for minors.
What was that?
What's your position on gender reassignment?
Yeah, I don't know.
For minors.
I pose it because if you can't go to Claire's at the mall and get your ears pierced when you're not 18, why would you be allowed to get a sex change? No one's really been able to answer that question for. And why in certain states?
Maybe they could start doing those at Claire's.
I don't know why I use that as an example, but I think they do ear piercings at Claire's. I have sisters, so I think might have been. I'm trying to go to Lids, or go to Fleet to the shoe store, get something. But that's always come do that. But there's some legislation on that topic that's been advanced. There's also legislation to keep biological boys out of women's sports. That's just common sense. I don't know how we got this. Is one of those. I wonder, why did we get here in society? I don't know, but I'm glad that the Save Women's Sports Act has moved forward. My understanding is pretty much law at this point. There's leaders on that, like Riley Gaines, who I listen to a lot. I think she's a good speaker. She's been to Ohio a lot talking about this. And that's kind of the same vein. If you're a biological boy, you can play in boys sports. If you're not, you shouldn't. And you shouldn't be breaking records from 20 years ago in high school because, that's not just an unfair advantage and it's not common sense. And neither is allowing someone to do something. If they can't get a tattoo, they can't pierce their ears, why is there an entire industry geared towards selling an expensive procedure not covered by insurance to do something like that that's irreversible? So I'm not supportive of it.
How many genders are there?
There are 2 genders. I don't think.
Wow. Really?
Someone asked me that today. How do you know the difference? And there's probably, I actually like the chromosome. There's men have an XY chromosome and women have an XX. Maybe I got that reversed. I'm not a doctor. I'm a lawyer. But
XY. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and there's also the Supreme Court one time said in terms of talking about obscenities. I know it when I see it. Was the test of obscenities in the United States for a long time, which is slightly less protected speech. And I think we know what a woman is. I think we know what a man is, and there's 2 genders. And I can't believe that's something we spend time on, not in this conversation, but in society. It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I do want to ask, so you passed the bar, graduated law school this year, passed the bar this year, and got hired by, was it a solo practitioner that kind of focused on real estate and probate law, and brought you on as hoping to build a government affairs practice, or what are you doing in law right now?
Yeah, so I'm a small business attorney, and I have some other practices that work that I am fortunate to work on. Primarily, I represent small businesses in a variety of civil disputes. Some of those are before the court, before tribunals. Some of those are outside the court and resolving disputes between entities. And the firm I work for has multiple lawyers there. They're a Republican-based firm. Not that that matters for the law. The law is clear. I mean, we're of the view the law is what it is. It's not what we think it is. We're using it as it's written. And so I'm fortunate to do that. I was on a call today with a judge regarding a matter, a small business that I represent, and we won in a matter at a hearing recently. And we won in a dispute. I thought we had a strong case, and we did. And so it's a privilege to be able to represent businesses, help them resolve their disputes. We don't win every day, but we work as hard as we can. I'm a very competitive person, and that fits me well. And it fits me in what I'm also trying to do in campaign and be an effective leader in the legislature and represent you in the state house.
I saw the press release. It said that that's what they hired you was to do government affairs, which that's kind of lobbying, right? Primarily. Is that
Yes.
what you're going to be doing, or are you like what's
and that firm is expanding rapidly, and I now have something maybe 6 attorneys that work within that firm. Maybe there's more, but it has grown. And I won't speak to what I don't work on. I'm a litigator and a transactional attorney, and I represent small businesses. That's what I do. The firm may engage.
Do you do constitutional law?
What was that?
Do you do constitutional law? I saw that in another article that said you were a constitutional attorney.
Yeah, so I'd say I'm blessed to have had the experiences that I've had, and what I really enjoyed in terms of my legal work was working for some of our brightest conservative legal minds, like our Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court, Sharon Kennedy, and also another justice who stepped up recently, Dan Hawkins, Justice Dan Hawkins will be on the ballot in 2026 for running for his reelection for the Ohio Supreme Court. And these are conservative folks who are at the Supreme Court working on constitutional issues. It was a privilege to work for them because Republicans, I'd say judges, have 2 camps of how they think. And this is maybe overgeneralization. But Republican judges tend to think that the law is what is written in the statute or what is written in the Constitution. The other side tends to believe, sometimes unfortunately believes, the law is what they think it should be, or what the Constitution maybe was supposed to be in terms of today, 2025. And so back to the former, not the latter, judges that we have elected to the Ohio Supreme Court are strong, they believe in the rule of law, and they call balls and strikes like they see them. And they pronounce the law to be what it is, not what they think it should be. So I've worked for them. I've been very fortunate to spend a good amount of time with them, learning from them. A lot of those issues involve the Constitution at that level, whether it's a state Supreme Court. I have never worked at the U.S. Supreme Court, but those are typically issues of great significance to the state at the state Supreme Court level, and it's a privilege to be with them and spend some time getting to know the Constitution and issues that play out before it. It was a good experience.
Robert, any final questions here for our guest, Ben Weber?
No, Ben, what would be your closing remarks on why the 86th district should be voting for you?
Yeah, well, it's been a good talk. I appreciate your time, those who listen to this conversation. The 3 fundamental issues that I would seek to address as your next state representative, that I commit to addressing as your next state representative, is to lower property taxes, to fight for our families, and third, I didn't get a lot of time to talk about this, and that's okay, but to push for a more affordable future that puts Ohio first, and a more affordable future that puts Marion first. And I'll tell you, there's ways you can do that. We have energy right here in the ground in Ohio. I think it's time we unleash the energy that we have. That's just one way that we can lower utility bills, make Ohio more competitive, a state to live in, do business in. We can make Ohio more affordable. And so I'll close with this. I've mentioned several times, I firmly believe I live a blessed life. I'm grateful to have a great spouse. And I'm not running for this job because I need a job. I am fortunate to do what I do. But I am running because I care deeply about our community. I care deeply about the priorities that I'm running on. And I would hope to earn your vote in the process. The election is in May of 2026, May 5th, 2026. And I'll be in the community. I give the business cards lit. I give them out. It's got my cell phone number on them. I give them to everyone that wants to talk and have a dialogue with me. And I appreciate that because Marion is a great place. It's been great to me. And I would be a real privilege to represent Marion, Ohio in the State House as your next state rep.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Ben. We kind of talked the gambit, went through the whole backstory, got into some good topics of relevance, and wish you the very best of luck. So thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm not sure, do we have when our next guest is, Robert? Has that been determined yet?
We're still working on it. One thing we are kind of tossing out there, Ben, and you're probably going to be the first one to hear this, and I think we have a third candidate floating around out there. Is that right, Mr. Weber?
Oh, right.
I've heard that, and I there could be more than that. In the Republican Party, tend to believe that we're here to debate candidates on the merits of their ideas. In a primary, it's not a Republican versus Democrat. It's one Republican or more that are running for the same seat. And we could see more than three. We could see me and one other opponent. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. Well, thank you once again, Ben Weber. Check out, what's your campaign website, Ben?
Ben Weber.
They can find you on Facebook. What's your link?
The website is benweberforohio.com, and the Facebook is Ben Weber for State Representative. That is it right there. We'll be adding it time. And there's ways to contact me. And if you'd like to give me to reach out to me and have a conversation, I welcome that, and I would appreciate that at any point. So,
all right, Ben. Thank you so much. And for Robert Landon, the hidden but still there Jason Foreman, I'm Cody Higley. This has been the Watchmen's Report. Have a good night.